Hi, I'm Dean Bushmiller with Expanding Security, and we're talking about threat vector characteristics. Boy, that's a mouthful. If this is your first vulnerability or threat video, please watch the free overview video. And if you're not seeing the full version, go to expandingsecurity.com. You can also get quizzes, badges, and this mind map with all the dynamic links. So let's get started. When we talk about threat vector characteristics, we have to, maybe you want to go back and again, review that threat and vulnerabilities overview. You'll know that it's the right one because this is the map that you actually see inside of there. Okay, now here's the problem with threat vector characteristics and the actual knowledge statement. Threat vector characteristics is the old term, and we've got a lot of past terminology that, as I've been doing my reading and research for this, I stumbled upon it. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And how does that fit in here? And I'm like, oh, now I understand. They're talking about MITRE ATT&CK initial access. But we have to know about all the past terminology in here. So sometimes it's called a threat vector, or maybe it's even an attack vector. And that's the path the attacker uses to exploit a particular vulnerability, or said a different way, that's the methods that an attacker employs to gain unauthorized access. Now there's also attack trees, which are different. They're a hierarchical nature, and that's a data structure like a tree structure that you would see out there. And that's the potential approaches to achieve the event. What is the event? Well, that's the evil stuff. That's breaking the system security in a specific way. We do use that today in our threat modeling. In a lot of tools that you see out there, they will actually talk about attack trees that are out there. But let's talk about today. Today, we're talking about what's called initial access. The attacker is trying to get in. Sounds like the same thing. The footholds gained allow for continued access. It is the same thing. But what we do is we attach this to the entire MITRE ATT&CK, and this would lead to the next 10 major steps in the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which we're going to look at. Now, when we talk about characteristics of this, if we just wanted to zoom out and say, okay, well, but what are the characteristics of all threat vectors that are out there? We start off with origin. Where did it come from? Was it internal or was it external? The initial mechanism really only breaks down into two things: an open port on the system or a user action as the result of, some other things that's happened to them. So what about the exploitation method? Well, technically that would be using the buffer exploit on the open port. That's the technical way of doing this, or through social engineering leading to the user action, the user clicking. Or it could be that the machine is configured by the user to say, hey, when I get an email, let my AI go in there and read it, open up all the attachments and review all the information that's inside of there and give me a summary of it. Well, when it goes to open that attachment, that's a user action that's programmed by programmed by us, and the system takes over, and then the exploit goes crazy at that point. What about the techniques? Well, for initial access, this is the bulk of our discussion. That's what we're going to do. We're going to shove that off to the next section. The impact, okay? This is going to be some form of reduction in availability, confidentiality, or integrity. Those are the three main ones that we look at, and that goes back into talking about common weaknesses and exploits, and that reaches back into common vulnerability scoring system, and that reaches back into the National Vulnerability Database. Boy, that's a long way to go to get to that stuff. Okay, leaders, what do they need? Okay, they need that initial access information that we're talking about here, and it needs to be pumped into a dashboard. And thank God there is a way to do this. Now, I've talked about this in other presentations. The MISP has a little component inside of there, and these T numbers that you're seeing inside of there, those are the numbers from attack, and they actually pop up inside of here, like automated collection and PowerShell, and all those components are listed inside of here. Now that can be stripped away and ripped down so that if we wanted to hand something to a senior leader that talks about threat vectors, they could actually look at that and say, oh, this came in through this vehicle right here. What this allows them to do is to support and direct all of the response efforts within our organization.